This Shabbat, we had some yeshiva boys over. They'd been out to the farm with their whole yeshiva. And of course, after every yeshiva comes out, many of them constantly are turning, can we come for a Shabbat? Can we come for a Shabbat? Shayna and I, we have like two little kids. It's exhausting during the week, all the hosting we do. We simply can't host hundreds of kids every Shabbat. It would be impossible. We would burn out. And so it's somewhat of a family time. But sometimes you just say, okay, there's that request. Well, let's just say yes to that one. It's like the starfish, hundreds of them on the beach. Like, what does it matter? One, you're going to throw back in the water. To that one, it matters. And so we said yes, and we had them over. And these were yeshiva boys from the Brooklyn, New York area. And they were so good, and they were so sweet and so respectful. And it pained me to speak to them because they were telling me about their plans and returning next year to New York and going to this college or doing that thing or whatever it was. And it didn't include staying in Israel and making their lives here. Now, in the past, that would pain me. It would pain me for them, for their sake, because they'd miss out on being a part of the greatest revolution in world history, which is the ingathering of the exiles. And they'd be trading their birthright in for the proverbial bowl of soup. A life of dynamic brilliance and mission and purpose to stay in Brooklyn where they're more familiar and secure. So it's their loss. Okay, fine. So they're not going to have the most incredible life ever. But now it feels different. It felt like, I'll tell you what it feels like to me. I may have shared this with you. I don't remember. It feels like I'm watching a horse-drawn carriage filled with friends and family, eating and drinking and being merry, and I'm watching them from a distance. And these horses are pulling them at full speed, careening right towards the edge of a cliff. And despite screaming on the top of my lungs, it feels like there's nothing that I can do. And it is difficult for me. I can't get it off my mind. And so when I spoke during Shabbat services, I shared the message that I had to share, that I felt like I had no choice but to share. Because after all, in the portion, what do we see? We see Jacob fleeing Esau, and he arrives at his uncle Laban's house, Laban's house, penniless. And he begins to work hard. He's working hard day and night. Sleep eludes him, working from scratch, from nothing up. Laban keeps him on and holds him close because he sees the tremendous value and blessing that Jacob is bringing with him, just financial blessing, wealth that Jacob is creating for him. But at the same time, Jacob is also beginning to accrue his own wealth and his own family and his children, and slowly but surely, but he's got this excellent work ethic, and Hashem is blessing him, and he's becoming rich in his own right. And really, it's the story of the Jewish people. These boys that were here for Shabbat, 3 out of 4 of them were from the Syrian Jewish community, which is a fascinating group of Jews who live in a very tight-knit community in Brooklyn, New York, and Deal, New Jersey. All of them live in one of those two places, and some live in both. And I visited them before. Really interesting, very hospitable, very Abrahamic, and very, loving and kind and holy, and they're very tight-knit. And these Jews came to the U.S. as refugees from Syria with nothing. And so many of them built themselves up from scratch. And many of them have built up quite a bit of affluence. And, I once met a guy named Jordan Nakash. That's where the brand name Jordash came from. There's a lot of that stuff. And they came from nothing, and they're charitable tzedakahs in their culture. But not only did they build themselves up for nothing, but they brought wealth and affluence to the community around them. That's their story. That's the story of the Jewish people in America. But that doesn't matter. The fact that they built up the affluence of the community around them doesn't matter. And it isn't mattering to the huge wave of resentful Jew haters that are coming out of the woodwork with astonishing, dizzying speed and boldness. It's happening so fast. And, just as that doesn't matter to the billionaire Kanye West, who built his wealth on the very platforms that the Jews that he hates created. He's a billionaire. The fact, by the way, that these Jews created these platforms, I'm not proud of that at all. But none of that fact matters to him, and it didn't matter to the sons of Lavan. Let's look in Genesis chapter 31, verses 1 to 2. Then he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken all that belonged to our father, and from that which belonged to our father he amassed all his wealth. Jacob also noticed Laban's disposition, that behold, it was not towards him as in earlier days. And fortunately, Jacob didn't have, YouTube and Facebook to distract him from what Laban's disposition to him was, to mute it, to numb it. He saw what was happening and he listened. But listen, it happened then really at once, and it was guided by Hashem. Hashem shifts hearts and minds. And this shift in the perspective and the disposition of Lavan and his sons was guided by Hashem in order to what? To lead Jacob and his family to leave, to return to the promised land. And it's happening before our eyes so quickly. Just look at this video from just a couple days ago. Now, forgive the vulgarities. I just thought this was too important not to share.
Because why don't you feel good about that?
Why don't I feel good about what Kanye is saying?
Both of them and Kyrie, what they got going on.
Well, I'll talk mainly about Kanye. I mean,
right, what about Kanye? Why you don't feel good about what he's saying?
And he's praising...
You're half Jewish.
Yes, and he's praising Hitler, saying the Nazis were cool, and saying the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, no, we support Hitler.
Right. All of you?
Yeah. Because Hitler was killing your people, man. Hitler knew who the real Jews was. Right? Hitler wasn't oppressing my people. He was coming for your necks.
Holy
right? And let me give you a wake up call, man. You're not a Jew. You're not Jew, right? You're the seed of the devil, man. Right? These brothers are on these platforms, Kanye and Kyrie, shaking things up. It's because it's a great awakening happening, right? The real Jews are back on the streets, and these so-called fake Jews who stole our identity are going to go into slavery, right? Because you're not a Jew, right?
Did the Holocaust happen?
It did happen, and we're glad that it happened. Guess what happened as well? But guess what?
It did happen, and we're glad that it happened. That's what he says. This is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call. And too many Jews are not listening, and it is plaguing me. Have you ever heard of this guy, J.P. Sears? I'm going to wind this message down. I know J.P. Sears. He's this redheaded satire guy. He's pro-liberty and freedom, and he's become very popular. Now, he put out this video about Kanye condemning his anti-Semitism, right? J.P. Sears was like, Kanye is really not right here. He's crazy. And as the usual comments on his videos are very positive and encouraging and supportive. People love JP. But this video, I think the video is called Kanye Storms Out of Tim Pool podcast, where, Kanye says, the Jews, to this, to that. And then one of the other podcasters actually agrees with him. Anyways, this video, so people were responding. You should just see it yourself. Wow, JP, you really missed the vote on the vote on this one. How can you not see what the Jews are doing? Comment after comment, and it's everywhere. It's like the country has come out of the closet and blatant Jew hatred is being normalized overnight, and everyone's feeling it, but they're too afraid to talk about it, to really talk about it. It's just too loaded. We have this WhatsApp group, a number of leaders and activists, and the debate is, how to approach it. And it's a very heated debate. We have one friend who just came back from America, self-funded tour, and he's holding signs literally like on the street corners, like how I imagine some of the prophets were received. People just don't want to hear it. And so what good is it to do, really, to shout from the rooftops in a way like that if no one will receive it? But you can't say anything, right? It's not clear what to do, which is why I wanted to share this with all of you to hear your thoughts